Hey guys, Mega Man and G here, and it's that time of the week again. Another week, another round of the Ace Attorney anime reviews. We're already 17 episodes in, and this week we're going to be talking about the conclusion to Reunion and Turnabout, with episode 17, Reunion and Turnabout Last Trial. Basically, this entire episode is where Aini Mine, or rather, Aini Mine, takes a stand. For those of you wondering, someone in the comments mentioned about how Aini Mine is sound. I don't really know for sure if it's Aini Mine or Aini Mine. Either way, I'm going to refer to it as Aini because that's how she is in the actual game. Anyway, as I said, this episode centers on Aini taking the stand, and it's up to Phoenix Wright to, well, convict her of the crime. And it's not an easy one since Aini loves playing mind games with Nick. Even with Mia by his side, it isn't enough. And it can be an intense trial, that's for sure. But before I get to the negatives, I want to say that this episode was an intense one because Phoenix was up against someone who actually was smarter than he thinks. And very manipulative at best because at one instance, you can tell by her smiling face and her closed eyes that she can be all innocent. But that is a facade. A true and utter facade as we continue through the episode and we see her true colors. And in a first for this, because in the Justice for All game, we don't see Aini Mine having like an epic, awesome breakdown. Here in the anime for the first time, we actually see an epic breakdown happen. And for what it's worth, it's hilarious and pretty awesome too. But at the same time, the episode does have its fair share of issues. Another positive moment is that the episode was a thrill ride, and Franziska von Karma, man, she was persistent. Absolutely persistent because she was determined to defeat Phoenix Wright no matter what the cost. And even though she tried, she eventually did suffer her loss. Which brings me to one of my first faults. You guys know that in the game, after beating, or rather proving Maya Fey innocent, Phoenix Wright gets a serious case of whiplash. And believe me, that does hurt. Here in the anime, we don't see it happen. Either they figure that if it were to happen, I don't think it would fit for standards, but that was one thing that kind of turned me off a little bit. It really did. And another thing I noticed as well is that during the testimony regarding the accident that happened last year, in the original Ace Attorney, like in the original Japanese version, since the games itself take place in Japan, Phoenix Wright details the car that Aini's sister, Mimi, was in, which in the anime, it's an American car. In the game, however, it was a British car. And a British car is basically the same as it was like in a car in Japan, because in America, people always drive on the left. The driver's seat's on the left. Everywhere else, like Europe and sometimes Japan, it's on the right. Here in the anime, they flip-flopped it like it is in the game. And it's kind of clever that they're following the original source material, albeit with some liberties, I might add. And when I mentioned some liberties, there were some moments that actually made me feel shocked. Like, in one instance, when the truth was out that Morgan Fey turned out to be an accomplice for Aini, everyone was in shock. Maya was horrified, and Mia, all she could do was just turn away. And it kind of made me feel bad for Maya and Mia. I mean, seriously. Morgan Fey was so obsessed with making Pearl the new master of Kurain that she would do anything. And getting revenge on both Maya and Mia wasn't enough. In fact, her hatred stemmed to even their own mother, Misty Fey, which was mentioned in previous episodes that she was the one who called upon the spirit during the DL6 incident. And when she was called a fraud, she disappeared. And Trials and Tribulations pretty much answered the real truth behind it. Here in Justice for All, those two offer nothing but resentment. Maya and Mia, they just look at her way. Maya wanting answers, and Mia just... When you saw that scene right there, you could feel their pain. You could feel their pain big time. And I really feel bad for the Fey siblings. Pearl probably, but remember, Pearl was channeling Mia, so she has no idea. Though if she did know the truth, she would be seriously heartbroken. She would be heartbroken big time. But I will say that the pacing for it is a lot better than last week's. It's a lot better since it takes place like in the trial itself, which gives way for much more streamlined pacing, and it was well done too. Although since we don't even know if Trials and Tribulations is going to get an adaptation, like a second season or something like that, I feel that this is going to be the last we'll see of Morgan Fey. Not to mention we don't get like an after-end scene with Morgan Fey wanting revenge and whatnot. But I like how they added a little bit of clever at the end regarding Maya's dream. And now, well, in the game, after like Maya and Mia reunite and telling her about the dream she had, in reality, we learned that the dream was actually, well, with when Mia was younger, she was wearing that same outfit. It gave her a sense of nostalgia. And I find it to be rather emotional. And it was also emotional for Pearl pushing Maya into the train to meet up with Nick. Yeah, she ships those two. Can we blame her? Because, yeah, she's a little kid. But I have a feeling this won't be the last time we'll see a Pearl Faye. Pearl Faye's going to be having a lot more importance later on. So, be on the lookout for that. I will say overall, the episode is okay. There were some faults in it, like what I mentioned, like the whiplash that never happened, because remember, this is an anime adaptation. And if something like a whiplash were to happen, standards and practices wouldn't allow it, so they had to scrap it all together. I don't mind it, but it just felt kind of off. Not to mention the Maya-Mia reunion never actually happened, though we do get like a little bit of backstory regarding the dream she had, so I have no complaints with it. Overall, it was a much better episode than last week, though it could be a lot worse. And with it, this concludes Reunion and Turnabout. I'm going to give this episode a 7. A 7 out of 10. It was a good episode, though it could have been better. It really could have been better, because I played the Ace Attorney games and I've memorized everything that would transpire. And I know the anime does take liberties with making things a bit different, but I wish they could just follow the adaptation instead of like jerking around. There are some exceptions, however, with episode 13, which I consider to be a very good episode. But, which brings up to next week. And when I saw the preview for next week, you guys know what's going to happen, right? You guys already know. Next week is going to be starting Turnabout Big Top, meaning that they're like skipping the Lost Turnabout entirely. So that means we're not going to see Maggie Bird, which is sad. But honestly, it's better this way, since even though we're following continuity, I'm more curious as to how next week's going to go by. So, that's it for this week's Ace Attorney anime review. I hope you enjoyed it like you have every other week, although last week was kind of a letdown. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button. It really does mean a lot to me. I hope to hear from you guys in the comments what you guys think of it. And if you want to be awesome and you want to help me out, please be sure to check out my Patreon. The link's in the description below. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. This is Mega Man NG signing off. See you next week for when we start Turnabout Big Top. First trial. Good night!